3, 2, 1.
Dave, thanks for coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Do you go by, do you have an alias?
Rico. It's kind of getting kind of old. I think I need to start going by my name, David, though. I feel a little too, not professional, but I'm getting a little too old for it. But Rico is fine.
What do most people call you?
Rico.
Rico, except for your wife.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. She refuses. She says she knows me better.
Knows you better than that. How old are you now?
36.
36 years old.
I'm old.
Oh, you think that's old?
It's getting there.
Yeah, when did you start feeling it?
About at 36, I think.
So just about now, huh?
Yeah.
So you have an interesting story. We haven't talked too much about it, but it started pretty early, didn't it?
It started pretty much from birth, but yeah, really interesting around 14.
Let's talk about that part of it for a little bit. When you started to get involved with the law, let's call it. What happened when you were 14?
Well, I had been taken away from my mom when I was 12 by CPS. My mom used drugs, and we got taken away. And I bounced around. I didn't get to go they took my 2 little brothers and my little baby sister, and they put them in one foster home because they were so much younger. And I was 12 at the time, so they put me in another one. Ended up running away. So I kind of bounced around from residential treatment centers and runaway shelters and this and that. And I ended up at Youth Achievement Foundation, a place in Texas, out in the middle of the country. It was
So did you live in Texas at this time?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So did you grow up there? Before 14.
I grew up at a lot of different places. I ended up in Texas in about the 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
But, I was born in New York, went from New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Canada, and then ended up in Texas. So.
Why, dude? It sounds like a military family almost.
No.
Albeit there, my understanding is there wasn't a dad involved.
No, yeah. My mom was, when I was born, she was 17 and a runaway from New York CPS system. And so we bounced around a lot. She went wherever her boyfriends took her or whatnot, you know what I mean? So anyways, when I ended up in this place, the Youth Achievement Foundation, I wanted to run away. They put me out in the middle of nowhere, and we were living out in tents and stuff, and it was insane out there, the stuff I was seeing, the stuff kids were doing. So my little friend he called me and told me if I wanted to come back to San Antonio, because it was right outside of San Antonio. I ended up running away from the place, and the guy that was in the place came with me, and we ended up in San Antonio on the east side. Me and my friends were walking around, and I guess I wanted to think I was tough, so I told them to pick a car. We had a knife on us. They told me as we were walking down Commerce.
How many people are with you?
About 5. It was me and a bunch of little...
so you're 14, you're all 40, give or take 14.
Yeah, ranging from 14 to about 15, 16.
Give me a little bit more foundation on this. You guys, are you going to school? Or so you're not in a foster home anymore. Where are you living?
I'm in... Well, where I ran away from, it was a youth camp.
Right.
Out in the middle of nowhere. If you want me to start from how I got taken away and tell you that, it kind of coincides.
Well, sure, if you feel it's relevant, go ahead.
The way it all started was my mom one day. I was the oldest, so I used to have to babysit all the time. I used to have to take care of my little brothers. They'd ask my mom, "Hey, can I go stay the night at a friend's house?" And she would refer them to me. She was a 90s mom who was involved in drugs, so she would lock herself in the back room, make a pot of spaghetti, you know what I mean? And that would be...
How much younger were your siblings?
The one closest to me was about 7. Joey, under him, was like 4, and Kayla was just a few months old.
So you had your hands full.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty much their father. Not in like a weird way, just period. I was pretty much their father. They didn't come to my mom for anything.
Right.
So anyways, my mom one day, she tells me that she's going to go to San Marcos for 3 days. And if I wanted her to take my brothers with her or leave them with me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I got to cut this guy's grass, take him with you and blah, blah, blah. So she takes him with her. The next day, I'm leaving to go cut this guy's grass, and I see a lady driving a car, and she's looking around. We're living out on the Guadalupe River in Texas, so not many people are looking around unless it's Memorial Day or a big weekend.
Yeah, it's quiet out there.
You know, so I see her looking around, and then she stops, and she looks at me, and she says my name. She's like, "Are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm David." And she's like, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" So I'm like, yeah. She gets out of the car and, can I come in your house? I'm a kid. So I take her in the house and she's like, when's the last time you seen your mom and your brothers? I was like, yesterday. She's like, do you know what happened? I'm like, no. And she was, well, your mom got arrested and your little brothers are in a shelter and you have somewhere you could stay for the night. And so I was like, yeah, I can stay with my boss. My boss, he wasn't really my boss. It was just some old man who had me cutting his grass. He was an Indian, actually. His name is Raz. He's dead now. But he was a good guy. Well, anyways, we went there. This was old CPS. They would never do this type of stuff now. Just drop you off at some random person's house. So we go over there, and they drop me off. I stay there the night. Next day, they come pick me up, take me to a place called Teen Connection in New Braunfels, Texas. I don't even think it's still open anymore. It's crazy, this place. I was 12 years old, and they allowed you to smoke. Like, they had a program set up.
What year are we talking about here?
Right now, 96, I was 14, so 94. And I promise, it sounds crazy, but it literally, like a structured program. They had a file cabinet that was about 5 feet, 2 doors on it, and it had a little lock on it, and whatever little level you were on, like if you were blue, you got 2 cigarettes a day. If you were green, you got 4. It was nuts, dude.
So it was like,
and they'd issue them out to you. I'm a kid, 12 years old, and they'd issue it to me. Well, anyways, so I end up running away from this place. I meet this guy. I think his name was Juan or something like that. He was older. He was like 17. So he convinces me. I'd never run away from nowhere before. He convinces me. He's like, let's go. I got friends and this and that. Run away. Long story short, get caught, you know, and then so they take me to a foster home. I stay in this foster home. I'm still in contact with these people to this day. Stay with them for about a year or so. The mom there was a principal of another school, another high school. And I leave there. From there, I think I went to Corpus, and this is when Selena died, because I was in Corpus when Selena died at a place called the La Raza Runaway Shelter.
Are you talking about Selena, the celebrity?
Yeah.
Okay.
When she passed away, I was there. They took us to the motel and all that. It was nuts. But so I go from there. I bounce around, maybe to about 4 or 5 different places, getting enough trouble to where I end up in this youth achievement place. And it's fine there, but there's just...
When you say trouble, you're talking about juvenile nonsense.
Yeah, like running away mainly. I'd run away, but when I'd run away, it was different than other little kids. I'd run away, and I'd end up in Dallas. Most kids would run away, and you'd catch them 3 or 4 blocks down the road.
How'd you get all the way to Dallas? You
hitchhike, ask people, hey, can I get a ride?
Is that kind of dangerous when you're...
Well, not really hitchhike. I always had a story. I'd meet some... I'd go to my friend's house and tell his mom, like, my mom is in Dallas.
I got you.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't really go out there and thumb it. But, so I end up in this youth achievement place. End up deciding that I don't want to be there no more, seeing all kinds of crazy stuff there, like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Give me an example.
Like, there was kids, like, doing stuff with each other, all kinds. They had this little kid there they named Hoover, for, if you think about it, you'd know why.
I think we'll make the implications what that means.
Yeah, and it was just terrible. I'd never seen stuff like that. I'd been in some crazy places, but once you start getting in more trouble, they start kind of farming you with other people who are getting...
Were these age groups,
anywhere from my age all the way up to until they're too old to be in custody.
Well, they shouldn't be there anymore.
Well, so I end up leaving that place. It wasn't my kind of environment. I end up leaving, and we're walking down Commerce Street in San Antonio. I'm with 4 or 5 of my friends, and I tell them if they pick a car, I'll get it.
Are you the initiator of that? Or
Yeah,
something?
like we're walking around like, what are we going to do? I just ran away from a place, so it's like I'm on the run. I think I'm cool. You know what I mean? Pick a car, I'll get it.
So what's the idea? Be cool, be the coolest guy there. All right,
The toughest one.
I'll show you who's boss for him.
We were all little kind of ghetto
Gotcha.
kids, you know what I mean? So, and back then it was a lot different. It was the 90s. Nowadays it was a little bit different than how we acted back then, you know what I mean? So
So you say pick a car. Wait, do you know how to hotwire cars already?
no, I had a knife.
You're gonna rig it.
No, I'm going to take it from whoever answers the door.
Interesting.
And it's nuts. I was 14. That's why I
so
say
you're-
we were just on a different.
So you're 14. So you're 14 years old, and you're walking down the street, and you say pick a car. You don't mean a car.
I mean, like,
It doesn't make a difference if somebody's in it or not.
yeah. I knew what we were doing. I was like, I got this knife. Pick a car, and I'll get it.
Where'd you get the knife?
It was just like a big long kitchen knife.
Where'd you get it from?
I
Taking it from
a
a
friend's
facility
house or something.
whatever?
No, well, when I ran from Hondo, Texas, and I'm in San Antonio, Texas. Hondo, Texas is about 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I probably got it from a friend's house before we left just to walk around with a knife.
Nonetheless, you had it.
Yeah.
Pretty good sized kitchen knife.
Probably forearm, like one of those just outrageously, you don't know why it's even that long kind of knife.
Okay. Yeah, a big one. So,
Yeah.
so a good 8 to 12 inch long.
Yeah.
All right. So you got a kitchen knife on you, and it's making you feel a little bold.
Pretty much.
All right. You want to show that you're the boss. Hey, guys, let's see what we can do. Pick a car. Do they? Do they say that one?
Yeah, they picked. This is back when the
Was
cool thing.
Was there any democracy in this, or you just had somebody said that one?
Pretty much when I said it, it took about a block span for them to pick a car. This is when the cars, what was cool was to have the small rims sticking out and your car to be real low. Mm-hmm. Remember that? It was a truck, a little gray truck. I don't remember exactly what brand and all that. And it was slammed to the ground. It was real little, like a Ford, not a Ford Ranger, but like small, like that one of the little slam trucks.
Did they realize that you were talking about with somebody in or out of the vehicle?
Yeah. My little friends, they called us the Scandalous Clique when we hung out. We stayed on the east side of San Antonio. It's a predominantly black neighborhood, and it was known like as the like boys in the hood type area place. It was a gang related, like a Crip area, and it was the only one. Everybody else around them was Bloods, and this is back when they were really gangbanging. So when I say we were doing different things, we were like, my friends, we were doing robbing stores. Like one of the guys that was there with me, he's in prison now because he tried to rob a dope house in San Antonio when he was 18, and he had an AK, and he had the switch. I think it was an AK. He had a switch on it that changed the rounds that came out, and as soon as he went through the door, he pulled the trigger and ended up shooting the guy like 5 times. He's gone. His little brother, who's 2 years younger than him, who was my best friend, he's in prison now for shooting a guy in a wheelchair. But the guy in the wheelchair isn't like your normal run-of-the-mill guy. He'd shoot you too. You know what I mean? So
this is part of that what is it, four or five guys, right?
yeah, we
So
were terrible.
You feel like you got the better end of the deal at the end of the day, I would assume.
Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah, well, now. Right. So, all right, you're walking along, they pick a car, they see that gray truck over there.
Yeah, and so
They know somebody's in it, or they don't know somebody's in it.
nobody's in it. It's parked in the
you.
driveway of somebody's house.
I got you. Okay.
So they pick it. I had a pair of shorts on, kind of like I do now, down to your knees, kind of long shorts. So I take the knife and I put it in my little belt loop or down in my pants type thing.
Dangerous place to go, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But so I walk up to the door, and I remember it vividly. There was like it wasn't really a porch to it. There was like 3 steps going up, just kind of like basic. You just 3 steps. And I walked up, and the door was already open, but the screen was closed, and it was a heavy-duty screen, one of those real heavy-duty. And so I stepped up, and I put my foot on the first step, and hey, hello, knock on the door. Some older man, not older, but like about 45, comes to the door, an older black guy, bigger, comes to the door and he looks at me and I'm like, yeah, do you know where the towers are? The towers in San Antonio. You don't need to ask nobody where they are. You can just look. You can see them if you're on any side of town. It's the big, tall, like, tower. You know what I mean? And so he kind of looks at me and he kind of gives me an eye. And I remember him vividly saying, he was like, what do you think you're doing? Because he saw my friends. My friends are standing behind me. There's like 4 guys, 5 guys standing back there. Just
Are they back on the sidewalk or
Yeah,
are they up on the porch? Or?
No, they're back on the sidewalk. They're a good 10 feet behind me, but we just look like we're up to something.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I ask him where the towers are. So he's like, what do you think you're doing? And I was like, man, I just need to know where the towers are. And I don't know what he was thinking, but he opened the screen door. You know what I mean? And when he came...
Oh, he's thinking he's twice your size.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
So he comes out, and I go to grab the knife. And when I go to grab the knife, it falls. I haven't said nothing to him, like, threatening yet. I kind of go like this, and the knife falls out my shorts. Onto the ground. It sounds
so. So he's standing on the front porch with you. Your boys are still, you know,
kind of far back there.
Kind of far back there. You got the knife in your pants where it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He comes out thinking he knows you guys are up to no good in whatever capacity. Opens the door. You pull the knife. Why? Because you're feeling like, all right, now we're in a threatening situation.
Well, no, I didn't even necessarily, like, I was getting a little worked up, but it wasn't. I wasn't scared of him per se. Not like I'm not saying that like to sound tough, but I wasn't necessarily scared. But I could see it was getting worked up. So he kind of, when he came out, I didn't go to grab it like threateningly. My plan was to kind of grab it, meant to say something to him, see how, and then pull it out. But when I went to mess with it, it fell out. So I reached down and grabbed it. And when I came back up with it, I was like, I need the keys to your truck. And he kind of laughed and smirked. And I grabbed him by his shirt because, like I said, it was like 3 steps, and my foot was on the first one. And he came down and kind of stood up on the second one.
Give us a little bit of a visual, right? You're kind of a big boy now. Were you big?
I was big
Were you
then.
big back then too?
I wasn't huge, but I was big then.
Thick.
Yeah.
All right. So, and what about the gentleman? We'll refer to him as that because he's not doing anything wrong. All right. He is. At the time, he's old, but the reality is he's not that old. So
he was a heavyset guy.
He's a big guy.
Yeah, he was a heavyset guy. That's why he wasn't like a worker guy. He was, not that it matters, but he was like more of a, this is the east side of San Antonio. That's why he came out. Because he was like, if we were up to something, he was planning on like meeting us halfway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, obviously.
Now as an adult, he's protecting his property. And if you 14-year-olds came up to my house, I'd do the same
obviously.
thing. Obviously. And you do the same, right?
Obviously.
So, you know, he kind of has a sense that do you sense he realizes you're up to no good?
Yeah.
All right. So he opens the screen door and you're thinking at the time
about to happen.
that something's going to go down.
And so
the knife falls out. You pick it up and you say,
I need the keys to your truck.
Yeah. And what's he say?
And he was like, he kind of laughed. He literally just kind of laughed. And when he did that, I grabbed him. Like I grabbed his shirt because I knew he was on the second step.
Is he taller?
And he'd fall.
Is he taller than? Oh, he's on the second. Oh, so
Yeah,
you're a little
I'm
bit
lower
down.
than him.
I got you.
And so as
So
soon
if
as
you
he
grab him,
laughed,
you're going to pull him down.
Yeah.
All right. So he's going to fall if you grab his shirt.
yeah. So I grab him, and as soon as I grab him, everybody pounces.
Oh, 4, 5.
Yeah. And my friend, he didn't
remind me how many people are here. 4 or 5. Are you the fifth or are you the
It's
fourth?
me. I can name him. It's me. Well, not name him. It's me, the guy who left with me, a Mexican guy. He was our Mexican friend from the East Terrace. My friend, who I said the younger brother who killed the guy in the wheelchair, and his older brother.
Oh, the guy who later killed somebody.
Yeah.
Else.
Yeah.
All right. So there's 5 of you all together.
Yeah.
You're all about 14.
Yeah, 14, 15.
14, 15 years old. And so you grab the guy and everybody pounces like
Right away. Like it's just
once you make the move, everybody goes for it.
And so one of them, we went through his pockets. He didn't have the keys or nothing.
So don't go too quick. Let's slow down a little bit. All right. So what's his reaction? He gets pulled down by you.
He starts scuffling and trying to.
Is he panicking? Or?
Well, he starts trying to fight with us. and a scuffle goes down.
Are you welcome in that neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't say welcome. So you say you're in the ghetto. It's primarily a African American community. You are not, and they are not either. Your crew, right?
No, yeah.
Isn't that a little bit more of a
little
bit more of a hint that something's up to him? I would imagine.
Yeah. But that's why it's not justifiable. But that's why we were so always, whenever we did anything wrong, we knew we were younger, we knew we were smaller, but we kind of felt like we were vicious. I mean, I ended up with 10 years for what I did, and that was my first crime.
Yeah. Well, this is the first crime.
Yeah.
This is the first one, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So you pull him down. He's struggling. Your boys pounce. Are they hitting him? Are they holding him down?
I mean, it's just a bunch of punching and kicking. And once he got down to the ground, because everybody was trying to get him down because he was bigger and older. Yep. So once he got down, it was pretty much, he was like, okay, I'm done. He seen we weren't planning on stopping.
Did he let you go through his stuff?
I mean,
at that
yes
point.
And no, kind of like, get away, what y'all want, leave me alone. Right. And my friend, he was like, he was like, we need the keys. And he was like, I ain't got my keys. And so my friend ran in his house, and I wasn't in the house. So my friend ran in the house, came out with the keys, and
he found them.
Yeah. I think he said they were like on the little nightstand or something like that. And you asked me if, I'm not going to go deep into it, but you asked me if that was my first case. I got little cases before.
Right. So they're not felonies though.
No, like assault and stuff.
So you're up to a little bit of no good before, but nothing of felonious behaviors.
No, not at all.
If that's even a word. So, all right. So the guy, he gives up. You guys beat him up pretty good.
Yeah. And my friend, the older one, runs in the house, grabs the keys, comes out, got the keys, jump in the car, we take off. So
how'd you at that time, at that moment, not how you feel about it now, we can figure that out later. I mean, how do you feel? What's going through your head? You feeling good?
I was excited.
You're hot, excited.
I used to get a rush off of it. Like, this wasn't the first time we did stuff like this, It wasn't so much about profit for us. That's what made us dangerous.
You were in it for the money.
Yeah, there was never, if I went into your house, like my neighbors' houses and all that, it was terrible. Like my neighbors' houses, I'd find where they kept their spare key, go in their house, and do things like take their shoes, eat their food. Like one neighbor had a Sega, and I used to go over their house and break in, play Dolphin.
Just for the audience, Sega's an old gaming system.
Yeah.
Just in case everybody. So basically, you play with your PlayStation in their house, eat
Echo
their food,
game,
and all that kind of
Dolphin.
stuff. And you're getting a thrill off of the fact that you're running the planet as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was ever gonna get. I mean, I knew I wasn't caring if I got caught either. It was just all around. It was like you see the kids on the TV in Somalia and these countries that are like little AKs. We would have been perfect for that because we didn't care.
So at the time, you beat him up pretty good, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is he bloodied or is he?
I mean, he wasn't
about.
We didn't like break his ribs and all that. It's just he knew that if he continued, he was going to get stabbed.
You wanted to show him who's boss.
Yeah.
Stay down or else. Did you use a knife on him at all?
No. Once the fighting started, I wasn't. No, I really didn't plan on stabbing him or nothing like that. I mean, I'm sure in my head if it needed to happen, it would have happened. But no, he didn't get stabbed.
But it didn't. It could have.
Yeah.
But that's a coulda, woulda, shoulda again. So it didn't happen nonetheless. So he's just wanting you out of his life at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do whatever you want. Does he know you guys are in the house looking for the keys?
Well, I mean, I'm sure he saw the guy run in there. We were all like standing above him. It got to a point where kind of the blows stopped and there was like threatening going on. Like,
go ahead and get up and we'll you're gonna go back down. Right.
Yeah.
So you get the keys.
And
truck's right there on the curbside.
It's parked. No, it's parked in his driveway.
Oh, in his driveway.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So we jump in the truck and they gave me the keys because they were like, "It's the older brother guy who's your truck and blah blah blah." You know what I mean? Gives me the keys, and so we decided we're going to drive out to Canyon Lake.
There's 5 of you though, and this is one of those old.
In the back, everything.
I was going to ask you how do y'all fit? How did y'all fit in there? Meaning,
a little bit of everything.
These are small cabs.
Yeah, 3 in the front, 2 in the back, that type of thing.
Okay, so you're all squashed into this little car. Right.
And so, my mom, when we had got taken away, she ended up living out at Canyon Lake in Texas, and every time I'd run away, that's where I'd go. So, I got the truck. I was like, let's go to Canyon Lake. We go out to Canyon Lake. We end up out there. It's the middle of the night. I don't know what time it is. But
how far of a drive, you guys think?
A good hour and a half. 45 minutes, hour.
What are you guys talking about during all that? You pumped up? It's no big deal because you've been in, nonsense before, or you're thinking this is a bigger one, or
no, I wasn't even like really thinking about what was like the car itself. Once we left the truck and once we were driving in the truck, I was just thinking about what we were going to do, where we were going to go.
All right, so basically now you just had a vehicle.
Joyride, yeah.
Right, so you're not thinking about the crime.
Not at all.
You're just thinking about now we got some. We have wheels.
Yeah. Right. So we end up out at Canyon Lake, and we ended up at some like weird, just on a road somewhere, and we get out. I want to say my friend had a friend too out there because my mom wasn't there, so. We go to his friend's house. It's not hazy, but we go to his friend's house, and then from there we end up on a dark road, and I think we wanted to find gas or something. I don't know exactly what we wanted, but I know we ended up breaking into a garage. Like we dared the Mexican guy. We were like, break the window, break the window. He broke the window. We opened up the garage. I remember there was like a 1960 car in there. We didn't take nothing. We didn't find no gas. But I want to say it was about gas because gas is what ended up getting us in a jam. Because right when we left this garage that we broke into, we're on a country road out in the middle of nowhere. And in Texas, when you're on a country road out in the middle of nowhere, you're the only car. You know what I mean? So we go to the gas station, and the plan is to steal gas to fill up the truck.
All right, so this is 1990, and they're not prepaid. There's no credit cards or anything like that.
I made it all the way to Arizona from Texas one time like that.
A whole nother story.
Yeah.
All right, so what do? You stop at the gas station, fill up.
Yeah, but when we stopped like a bunch of hoodlums. That's what got us. Like my friends were walking all under the cover that the gas pumps are under, right. Walking all in there. It's the middle of the night. It's literally like 2 a.m. So I see the gas person come out, and they have the clerk in the store, and they have like a little pad, and they're walking in the distance, and I could see them looking and like looking up and looking down, and I could tell they're trying to get the license plate number. So my buddy, the older guy, I tell him, he's like not the leader of a crew, but kind of he's the oldest. I'm like, they're trying to take the license plate, and he sits on the tailgate because he was sitting in the back at this time, and he puts his foot in front of the license plate
number.
You know what I mean? So the people look, and they take off. They don't even walk away. They kind of run into the store. We all pile in and take off, and as we're driving, we come up to a really big hill. We're in the hill country. You know what I mean? We come up to a really big hill, and as we're going up it, I don't know what happened to the truck, but it starts sputtering, like it's like as we're going up this hill, and it's dying. Like the headlights are wanting to die and everything. And I see a car like flying towards us, and I just know it's a cop. And the hill we're on, there's like on this side it's a cliff looking like, and on this side it's a drop off a little bit, not a straight drop off, but like a little hill. Mm-hmm. And the hill goes into, I remember seeing a trailer, like. There's no turnoffs. This trailer, the road was back behind me. And the trailer is down here, and there's a big propane tank behind it and another trailer behind it. The reason I know is because as soon as the cops passed me and turned behind me, I turned down that.
So, yeah, you it's a cop because he's coming down that fast, or you have a modus operandi on the Crown Vics or whatever it may be. You know what their Taurus is, whatever they were back then. You know what they look like, right? So you tell me they go past you.
Well, they're flying. They're going to that gas station. We came out of that gas station like a bat out of hell. Okay. You know what I mean? And so we're not even a mile from the gas station, and it's only one road where we're at, Canyon Lake. There's like a main road called 306 that goes around the whole lake.
So is it one cop or more?
It's one.
All right, so he's flying down. He goes past you.
Yeah, he flies by me, and then you just see the brake lights in my rear view mirror, because I'm sure they told him it's a truck full of kids or people. You know what I mean? So as soon as he comes in,
Are you driving?
Yes.
All right, so you see the rear. You see the brake lights in the back.
Yeah.
And you look in the rear view, whatever it is. What are you thinking now?
Oh man. You know what I mean? Oh man, my heart. When that happens, that's when the oh man.
Is that when
Adrenaline? What am I gonna do?
Is that when they? Yeah, right. So all kinds of different feelings go through you.
And my brain said, "Turn down that cliff." It wasn't a cliff. I mean, but it was pretty steep. It wasn't a regular, because it's not meant for cars to drive down. It's like a drop off, and then there's a trailer, and then lower drop off. There's another trailer, and it works its way down to the lake. You know what I mean? Drop off, drop off, drop off. Almost like a big set of stairs, but kind of rounded.
Your first thought, is everybody actually in the vehicle, or you got guys in the back?
In the back and in the front.
Are they in the bed? Is there a bed?
Yeah.
You got guys in the bed of the truck, and you're thinking, I'm going to take this thing off.
The car's dying. It's going as we're driving up the hill. Like, it's literally, if the cop wouldn't have stopped, we would have had to pull over or roll backwards. It was, I don't know what happened to it, but it was dying.
Nonetheless, your thought process is, let's go off the...
Yeah, let's go down. Because I seen another road.
Let's go down there. Let's go down the cliff.
After these two trailers, I saw the road that turned behind me, like, that I passed up.
Yeah.
It went down and then came around. And I seen it down there, because as you're going up, you see the road going like this, and then there's a cliff beside you. You know what I mean?
So what do you do?
I turn down it, and I'm not going super fast down it, because still the car is still dying, but I'm getting a good little speed.
You have gravity now.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, when I got down to the bottom, the cop was already down there, and there wasn't, once you got to that road, about 5 feet away was the lake. So there was no, like...
Are the guys in the back not bouncing around, almost falling out?
I wasn't.
Or you didn't care?
That wasn't my concern. I'm sure they were, but they all survived.
Oh.
That's so terrible. It would have been crazy.
No, I mean, I guess the question is, when you go into that moment, right? So you're in this moment where...
I would have jumped out.
Again, it's fight or flight. I'll keep saying this to many of our guests, but you decided to flight, which is the usual. Well, you wanted to get away.
I'm surprised they didn't jump. I would have jumped.
They could have, but you were driving, and you weren't thinking, "Oh, my boys are going to get thrown out of the back if I go down this thing." You could care less.
It wasn't that type of. It wasn't. I wasn't nowhere near like, oh, it's all or nothing. It just seemed like trying to go up the hill. The cop would have came up right behind me, and the car would have ended up dying, and I would have just ended up backing up into him.
All right, so you're done. So you're down. You're down the cliff. You're down there. The cop, he had already done a turnabout.
Yep.
Right. And he knew you were going down there, so he just probably went down the hill.
And he met when we stopped. He met me.
Came back around. So
your
car dies right there. Or
pretty much. As soon as I stopped at the bottom of the hill, it literally just it was over. And so we stopped. Surprisingly,
well, you stopped, but not voluntarily.
Yeah, but we didn't run. When he was I couldn't, all that going down the hill and all that and trying to get away, you would think we still ran, but all 5 of us were just like, hands up.
Why?
I don't know. It just, I at that point, I felt like it was over.
Well, there was one police officer, right?
Close behind him.
At the end of the day, I'm certainly not suggesting to run from the police. It's the last thing you should be doing, but the math says that 3 people can get away and 1 won't.
Yeah, I know, but I think in their brains they were like, okay, we're not the ones that actually pulled out, because they knew I wasn't going to tell. They knew if when it all came down to it, they'd go to juvenile, and this is pretty much what happened. We all went to juvenile, and they all went home because I just told them I did.
Who's they all went to juvenile and they went home?
No, like we all went to juvenile that night from there.
Gotcha.
And I stayed, and they all ended up getting out and going home like within a day or 2.
Why you? Because you were
I told him I
You were
was the only
initiator
one, and this and that. And yeah, he said that there was, but I was like, these guys weren't with me. I was with my other buddies, and we jumped them, and I dropped them off, and
So you scrambled the story a bit enough to where that they could,
and back then, if they just wanted the main guy,
all right,
you know
so,
what I
and you admitted you were the main guy,
Yeah.
right, and you scrambled the story enough to where possibly to them they couldn't prove it was those guys, unless potentially they went back to the gentleman's house and had the ID or whatever. Did they ever do that?
I never heard anything else about none of the other guys. I don't know. Once I went, because when I went to juvenile, it didn't stop from me there. I started like trying to escape and all this nonsense. So they were just out of my brain. I never heard about them.
Had you been arrested before this? I mean, the misdemeanors are what they are. I'm talking about, had you been put in cuffs, put in the back of a car? You know,
I got an assault case in the 5th grade, and I didn't necessarily I got arrested. They took me to a little courthouse and put me in a room and sat me there and talked to my mom. I beat up a guy on the bus with a bar of soap because he was making fun of me. We lived in a tent. He knew we lived in a tent. And every day I'd get on the bus, and one day he came up with a bar of soap and was playing with me about it, and I beat him up with it pretty bad.
So you're being bullied.
I mean, yeah, but
No. Well, I mean, you're saying you didn't initiate it.
No, yeah.
He came up to you and he paid the price.
And the thing is, back then in CPS, if you didn't do a crime against a public person, you wouldn't get a charge because you had a CPS lawyer that represented you. So I was like stealing the vans from the places that I was at and doing all kinds and never getting in trouble, beating up the guards or fighting them, not beating them up.
This is all prior to this incident.
Yeah.
Though,
So
right?
that's why I was like that already.
All right. So you go. Are you nervous? You're in the back of the car. It's hard to, it's a long time.
It's more
ago.
of one of them things where my buddies are like, "What's going on? What are you gonna say?"
Are you all in the back of the same vehicle?
I want to say me, Marshall, and his brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to say we were in the same car, and then the Mexican was in his own.
Were you collaborating in the background to say, look, whispering to each other, let's tell this and tell that, and so on and so forth?
And from there, they end up taking us to a boot camp. Like it had a juvenile connected to it.
All 4 of you.
Yeah. And literally the next day, they were all gone, and I stayed. But I think they went to another San Antonio one, or I don't know what was going on. But CPS must have been like, he's ours, or this and that. Anyways, I end up in juvenile. Where did I go from the boot camp? I went to San Antonio too. I went to the juvenile in San Antonio.
What were the charges for that?
Aggravated robbery.
And what was the outcome?
10 years. I went to TYC. It's like Texas juvenile prison.
Juvenile prison for 10 years. That was the sentence, or that was you got sentenced for that long?
Yeah.
For 10 years.
It was a plea bargain. I mean,
But you're 14 years old.
They were wanting to give me 45 years, so I signed a plea bargain for 10, not knowing any better. I mean,
who is your? Did you have an attorney, public defender?
Yeah, CPS didn't give me a lawyer, so I had to deal with and I'm not saying that like spitefully, but they didn't want no part of it. You know what I mean? So I got a public defender.
So you got the public defender, and you're in court. You're a kid, right? You're 14 years old, and they say to you, you don't know any better at the time, right? So they say, now knowing what would you say the maximum was? 40?
They were trying to give me like 45.
45 years. But you're 14 at the time. Were you being tried as an adult or
no? I got very, very. I mean, as lucky as you can get, considering I got 10 years. But it was in '96. It was February 27th of 1996. Actually, was the date that it got committed. And in January, they had just came out with a law. If I had done it before January, I would have got like 6 months. Literally.
What was the law that had gone into effect?
That they started giving more time to juvenile offenders, at least in Texas.
45 years is a big difference from 6 months.
Yeah, 10 years even. Because when I ended up in TYC, they only had like 100 of us who had years, and all the other people there were like 6 months.
So back up a second. You're sitting in court, and somebody says to you, the judge,
Yeah.
or I mean, there's a sentencing period, and they say to you, what do they say to you?
I mean,
you hear the word 10 years come out of their mouth, and what are you thinking?
I feel like I laughed, or not laughed, but kind of like, I don't care. I just feel like literally like, I don't care.
Was that a defense mechanism?
I'm sure, but
Psychological.
I felt like I had already been locked up. I was used to it. I was a product of Child Protective Service. It was just another group home to me. Like, it literally, I just probably couldn't go to the store is what I thought.
So, I mean, you'd been in holding for a while, waiting to
Yeah.
be sentenced or waiting to go through. You didn't go through trial, I assume.
No.
Right? You cut a deal.
Mm-hmm.
The defender cut a deal with the DA or whatever it might have been, right?
Yeah.
But you hear him say 10 years, and you're thinking, whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
At the moment,
Yeah.
at that time.
And my mom was in prison too, so it was just like,
And your siblings are still off,
yeah.
wherever.
Yeah, it sucks. I lost contact with them for a long time.
And that's not going through your head either at that time.
Kind of, to be honest with you, that's kind of the only, that's something that always kind of bothered, not kind of even, it was something that I act like kind of bothered me. When I act like nothing else mattered, I would be like, man, my little brothers and sisters, you know what I mean?
What do you think of that at the moment? It's tough to go back 22 years and ask yourself, was I thinking about that when I heard my sentence?
Yeah, but not really.
No.
You know what I mean?
So you take your,
It wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say.
So they they take you back, and now you're in juvenile for how long? You're sentenced to 10, but you're gonna turn 18, right? So.
Yeah, I want to say, but no, in Texas, the way it worked back then was you could, if you got sentenced before you were 18, you could stay in juvenile custody until you were 21.
I gotcha. So you're going to do a minimum 7.
No, 3 years. They had it set up that I had to do a minimum of 36 months because I was a teenager.
I see the initial 3 years.
Yeah, and I think I stayed in juvenile less than a week because once you get sentenced to TYC, they're pretty on the ball about coming to get you. Yeah.
Coming to get you to take your where?
To the Marlin Orientation Unit.
What is that?
It's a kid prison, man. You get there and it's like, it's not like juvenile anymore. It's barbed wire, 2 double fences so you can't get away. Not barbed wire, razor wire. And it's
like it's prison for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to see it on a TV show, you'd say that's a bona fide prison. Prison. Right.
A lot of them, it's always on the news and stuff over there.
Okay. So you're in there for how long?
The first time, I had to do my 3 years, and then I got sent to a halfway house in San Antonio.
Because?
Well, because I finished my little 3 years, and they weren't just. I didn't have nowhere to go. My mom was still in prison. No, my mom was dead when I got out of TYC. She had gotten out of prison and got in a car wreck, drunk, and this and that, and so she died when I was 16. I got out when I was 17, and they sent me to the Aries house on the west side of San Antonio.
How'd you feel when your mom died?
It was nuts. I was graduating.
How'd you hear about that?
My foster mom, the ones that I said that was still in contact with me.
Right.
She kind of threw the whole thing when she felt guilty because she had not kicked me out, but I had gotten in trouble and had to leave their house. So she had always kept tabs on me, and she was coming to my graduation. My mom literally died the day before my graduation. It's GED. I got my GED and high school diploma, but at that time it was my GED graduation. And so I'm in juvenile, so they have like a little ceremony and all that. So they're in Beaumont, that's where I'm at, and they end up coming up. I remember the way I found out, though, was my caseworker, not them, actually. My caseworker took me in the office, and she was like, I'm sorry that I said that it was them. I just remember they were there in town, and they ended up coming to support me and blah, blah. So my caseworker calls me in the office, and she's like, she's like, your mom got in a car wreck today. No, first she said, is your mom named Scarlett? My mom's, yeah, I was going to say her last name, but she's like, is your mom's name Scarlett? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, Scarlett so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, she was in a car accident today. And I was like, are you sure it's not the other David? Because there was another David with my exact same name. Right. And they were like, no, I doubt y'all have the same name, Mom. And I was like, okay.
It's a unique name, Scarlett, at the time, certainly.
So I was like, okay. And they were like, she didn't make it. And I'm like, what? They were like, she didn't make it. And so I kind of sat there kind of like for a minute. I can't say that I just like broke out crying or nothing like that. I was kind of numb to stuff back then. That's how I got through getting in trouble, getting 3 years and kind of being like, so it's not that it didn't matter, but I was kind of like, eh. So they send me to the little solitaire in there. It's called security. They're like, go to security and just kind of wait it out and this and that. So they send me to security. I'm like, I want to go back to the dorm. They send me back to the dorm. I end up going to the funeral too, all shackled and handcuffed in leather shackles and leather handcuffs.
Out in public.
Yeah, my little brothers. That's the first time I got to see them since I had got locked up.
It had been years.
Yeah, it had been through. I'd left when I was 14, and I seen them when I was 16.
What kind of accommodations did they have to provide you? I mean, you're in shackles. You got somebody.
I had. They took me in a van. Two of the little guards. When I got in there, they let my hands off the shackles. Yeah. But they kept the feet one on.
Right, so you can't run.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Because you're now out in the public world.
Yeah, and plus if I hadn't had such a history of running,
well, I was going to say
they would have.
That might not have. Yeah, that might have contributed to your shackles. Yeah. So how are your feelings about that at the time? You're numb to it.
It was weird. I've had friends that died, and even as a youngster, had friends that died, but I never went to a funeral. I had never experienced that. My mom's funeral was the first one that I went to. And I remember it being kind of surreal because my little brothers were there, and this is the first time I had seen them. So they're kind of not playing. My little brother closest to me, Lewis, he's in prison right now for 35 years for killing somebody. He was more sad. I remember him sitting next to me kind of like shelled up and just like, he was the real emotion. He's always been the sad one of us. And then Joey, he was kind of like rambunctious. I remember him swinging on my shackles because they were leather and it didn't hurt. And my little sister, she was just a baby. So she was like 2 or 3 at that time, you know what I mean? But it was weird. I remember feeling her cheek and it felt like leather, like a football. It was weird.
If you don't mind me asking, so they had an open casket.
Yeah, but you could tell that she had got flung because kind of like her neck kind of looked squared off like a football player or something like that.
Did it bother you? You're still young at the time. I mean, in terms of, you agreed you hadn't seen a funeral before, albeit certainly not your mom, right? And you had a different kind of relationship with her.
My mom was like my best friend. My mom wasn't my mother. She didn't tell me what to do, even up to the age of 10. And she raised me, not prepared me for stuff like this, for like the death and stuff like that. But at the same time, she kind of gave me a mindset of things are what they are. Me and her had those like understandings. We lived in tents, we lived in cars, and every time I wasn't just like, Mom, I wasn't a kid. I wasn't like, oh, I want toys. I'd be out there like figuring it out with her at young ages.
So you weren't necessarily, so your relationship with your mother, you had a friendship and a kinship, of course. I mean, you're taking care of each other, it seems.
Yeah, and she told me, she just prepared me for stuff like that. She never told me like one day she's going to die, but she just prepared me for all the bullshit. You know what I mean? All of the stuff that was going to come with it.
Did that image of her at the funeral stick in your head for a while?
I mean, I could still see it. They had her in like a flower dress and a jean jacket and a beanie. And I mean, the beanie's for obvious reasons, I'm sure. But
so you're still only what, 17?
Yeah, I was 17. I was 16.
16 at this time. At some point, so now your mom has passed away, unfortunately, in a tragic accident. Regardless of, she
Yeah.
was drinking or not, nonetheless tragic, right? So you go back, you finish up your time as
The little minimum, yeah.
in what is it called, Marlin?
No, well, I went to Marlin. That's just an orientation. That's where they like
Oh, I
get your
see.
name and all that, and then they spit you out to somewhere else.
I see. All right. So you still how much time do you have left on your sentence?
7 years until I was 24.
So you're going to be 24.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that. So you're sentenced to 10, but is it known in Texas to actually have to stay for the entire? Because
If you're a kid, no. If you're an adult, yes.
Well, I mean, a lot of people get let off, with 30% complete.
Well, I was going to end up going anyways into the adult system, not per se incarcerated, but when I turned 21, it was going to transfer over.
No matter what.
Yeah, they weren't going to be like, oh, okay, go.
And all of these were on the basis of that single incident, the assault on the gentleman, right?
Oh, the aggravated robbery.
I mean, that's what they turned it into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm saying they called it aggravated robbery because you went into his house, you had a knife.
It was the knife. If there wouldn't have been a knife, well, beating him up, it would have still became probably.
Either way.
Yeah. But so I go to the halfway house when I'm 17, and I stay there for a little bit, and I got in trouble 1 or 2 times, and I was going to get sent back to TYC. I got in trouble for doing things like I had a girlfriend, and I'd say I was at work, and I'd have my boss cover for me, and I'd be at the movies. And if the place called and said, hey, is David there? He'd say, no, we just left, and then he'd call me and say, hey, go home. And they ended up catching me once. Then another time they ended up catching me, and I knew they were going to send me back to TYC the next day, and I ran away.
So what happens from here? You turn it. Do you do the full 10 years?
No, I end up, when it's all said and done, I go back to TYC, and when I'm 20, when I'm just about to turn 20, I'm like 19, and it's literally probably November. I turned 20 in January.
So you're almost about 6 years in.
Yeah, they end up saying, we don't want nothing else to do with you, because they tried to send me to prison. The judge sent me back to TYC, and they were like, we don't want nothing to do with you. We're going to transfer you over to TDC, the Adult Parole Division. And they let me out.
How was your time just briefly, how was your time in prison? You have bunkmates. I mean, you learn the lingo.
Prison or juvenile?
Oh, in juvenile.
Okay.
You have bunkmates. You learn the lingo.
It was real.
You learn the lingo pretty quick. You get your way around. You have any trouble there?
It was just like a high school for going to prison, because I've done both, and to be honest with you, it's almost like the TYC was kind of more rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily get into a bunch of issues because I'm Puerto Rican, and in Texas it's a big thing to be race relation. Like if you're Mexican, you hang out with all the Mexicans, even in juvenile.
How many Puerto Ricans are in Texas?
Not many. So
I was gonna say,
I've always kind of got to kind of be on my own.
How did they know that you were Puerto Rican?
Because of my last name. Everybody would think that I wasn't, and then they'd hear my last name and be like, well, why is your last name this and that?
Right, that's what they give away.
It's like almost saying my last name is Sanchez.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like that.
So you don't have much of a crew to hang out with.
No, but I was always all right. I wasn't an outcast, but I didn't have a set group. Everybody, because I was still a little bit off my rocker. I got in fights and I did things in there.
But nothing that extended your sentence.
No. Thankfully they couldn't really do that unless I really messed somebody up.
So what happens? You get out of there.
I get out, and
Are you feeling, when you get out,
well, I had been in there pretty much locked up.
Or did you feel like you were leaving your home?
No, I felt free. I mean, I was going out on adult parole. I wasn't going to be dealing with the juvenile system.
Right.
They were I was going to go stay. I could pick anywhere. I was going to stay with an ex-girlfriend, not her family, but they had like an apartment in the back. And
you had to stay in state, though.
Yeah. And they let me out on the monitor. And
you were tethered.
Yeah. I was going to have to stay on it for like 3 years.
To your ankle?
Yeah.
Ankle bracelet?
Yeah. I had the steel wires and then in it and all that.
What year is this at this point?
I got locked up in 96, 19, 5 years, so about 2000, 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
How did it feel to have that on your ankle? Or did you become immune to it?
I was glad to be out at first, but then after a little while, it was kind of, it was complicated to deal with, like, because I used to have to give them an exact schedule of where I'd be, and there would be no leeway in between it, like a 5-minute window. And then if I wasn't there, like, they could GPS it, this, that, and the other. And I say it like it was inconvenient. I mean, it's obvious it was my consequence, but it started getting kind of crazy. You know what I mean? I ended up breaking it off.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was leading to that. I think we had talked before, and, you mentioned that, that you had this tether on for a while, and you had to, keep up with, just check-ins and whatnot, and where you were, and all that kind of stuff. So, as you may have told me before, but for the audience, you broke it off.
Yeah.
How'd you get it off for yourself?
With a small screwdriver, because they put it on there pretty, I don't know how the ones are nowadays, but back then, it was like about the size of a pager, an old pager. And on one side, it had like digital stuff, and on the other side, it had like, I don't know if you've seen a motherboard. Obviously, you've seen a motherboard,
yep.
But they'll have chips on there that have a lot of spikes, and they're like a good size square, and that's the back of it. They'd clamp it on there. It had 2 steel wires through it and everything. I had to snap it with a screwdriver.
You figured it out.
Yeah, they had like a little hole where they put their key.
While you're doing that, obviously, you're not supposed to take it off, right?
That one I was scared because I had kind of started not growing up, but I kind of knew, I kind of wasn't the same as I was when I was like 14. I still did it, but.
You did it. What was the intent? To leave it in one place? I mean, obviously, or if you're thinking even mildly straight, you're thinking, all right, I'm either going to have to leave this in a fixed location and act like I'm home all the time, and or take it around with me anyway in my pocket, and where in line.
When I broke it off? When I broke it off, I was leaving. There wasn't no keeping it on me. I broke it off, like, I left it at my house. I called my parole officer when I was leaving. I was like, hey, that thing's at the house. You can go pick it up.
That's bold.
I mean, I knew at the minute I broke it, I'm sure some alarm somewhere went,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Where were you going?
Arizona.
They didn't know that, of course.
Yeah.
Certainly you weren't going to tell them. Why Arizona?
I had a girl I was writing when I was in TYC the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was the current place I was living. The reason I had to break it off was because the girl there was mad, and her mom and them were like, look, man, y'all keep arguing and fussing with each other. We're going to pick our daughter over you. You're going to have to figure something else out. And so I called my parole officer. He was like, well, if you ain't got nowhere to stay right now, we'll put you in the county until you find somewhere else to stay, and then you can get out and go there. I didn't have nowhere else to go. So that's why the monitor came on. That was my justification at that moment.
At the time. Right. Why didn't, I'm asking a logical question.
Go ahead.
You're in love with this girl at the time?
Yeah.
All right, so why didn't she just come to Texas?
I didn't break it off necessarily for just to go to Arizona. I was about to either have to go to the county or I was going to break it off.
One or the other.
And breaking it off sounded better than the county. Because it's not a good reason, but I wouldn't have found somewhere else to go. They would have ended up having to be like, oh, we have a program somewhere.
So she wasn't the driver behind it, but that was
No.
one of the outcomes.
Yeah.
This is that you went out to Arizona. Whereabouts? Tucson, Phoenix?
Real close to the border. I went to Douglas. It's right by Bisbee, Arizona.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. It's really down south.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Right. That's where she lived.
Yeah, out in the middle of the desert. Saw my first dirt devil and all that there.
No, not pretty things to drive into when you're on a motorcycle,
Oh, man.
by the way.
Or the jackrabbits.
There's quite a bit of them. So she's out there. How old are you at this point?
19.
19.
About to turn, or 20 at that point. Maybe I might have been right around
So
20.
that'll happen pretty quick. I mean,
Yeah.
between getting out. And,
Yeah, like within 5 months, if that.
Yeah, you just couldn't take it with the thing on you. So you told your parole officer, I'm taking off.
Mm-hmm.
And you're moving. They don't know where you went. Right?
No. He was cool about it. He was like, he told me to leave it. He was like, well, you better leave it at home or we're going to charge you when we do catch you.
Charge you for what?
For the thing.
What, theft of a...
Well, he even
theft
said,
of
make
an
sure,
ankle bracelet?
he said, try not to break it. I was like, well, it's already broken. I snapped it.
Well, isn't it already a crime to have taken it off in the first
It's
place?
escape from custody.
Yeah. You're on parole.
Yeah, it's like when you have that thing on, it's like you're still in custody. It's not It's not the same as escaping from jail, but it's
a second.
It's right there.
It's right there. Yeah. Yeah, they're trusting you that you're not going to do something
Yeah.
like that, and you're going to keep it
Yeah.
on, so on and so forth. So now you're a wanted man, I would assume.
Yeah, that was fun.
Is that a felony by itself?
I mean, I couldn't say. Once I knew I was in trouble for aggravated robbery, running from parole. It might have been, but I wasn't.
You weren't caring about that.
I still don't know to this day. It might be on there somewhere.
So you go out to Arizona. I want to back up to the victim a little bit. Did you ever run into him in court or anything of that nature?
No, never. Never saw him. Never showed up. None of
To
that.
this day, do you know who he is?
I mean, I know his name.
No, I don't want you
But
to mention
no, I'm not
it,
going
of
to say
course,
it. But I know his name. But that's only because in TYC I had to do all these programs where I talked about it. You know what I mean?
But you never had any. You never had
Nah.
to talk to him or confront him. Or,
I mean, when I got older and when I was in the county jails and stuff like this, from the monitor, I came across people who, oh, I've heard of him. Oh, I know him and this and that. But thank God I never came across somebody who was like, that's my uncle. You know what I mean? It would have been a problem.
for you.
Yeah.
Good thing, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So you get out to Arizona, living with
Mandy.
Mandy. How long did that go on? You know you're wanted, but you don't care.
Yeah.
You figure you're half a tick away from the border.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
It
comforting?
was nuts. It was so.
Was
yeah.
that comforting?
I mean, I wasn't worried about running. I didn't think if something happened, I didn't kind of go down there with a master plan. I was good at blending in. I've always been pretty good at blending in. So I knew that if I was in Arizona, wasn't nothing going to happen.
Well, there's nothing much out there
Yeah.
either, right?
Yeah.
So it gave you a little comfort that you had some distance, and of course you're near the border if need be. Forget it, you're out of here.
Yeah.
All right, so you lived with Mandy for how long?
Not long. Maybe.
That didn't play out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, her mom wasn't feeling me, you know. Her mom kept down there. Marijuana was really accessible, so she kept a good amount in her freezer. And I guess
Mandy did, or
her
the
mom.
Okay.
And I guess I smoked too much, and that was the main issue.
That you were taking her.
Yeah, I was smoking a lot of it.
Taking her pot.
And she was like, this kid comes out of nowhere. And not only that, but I was like cruising the town and hanging out. So I'd leave and I come back in at like just retard stuff. Come in at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd just been there a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
But it was the mom's house, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right, so she's sort of like, all right, this guy's, he comes in here, he's eating all my food, he's with my daughter, smoking my pot.
He's this kid, and she knew where I was from. She knew I was from Texas, TYC.
Did she know you were
on the run?
On
No,
the run?
not at all.
No. Did Mandy know you were on the run?
I really can't say. I don't know if I would.
Or you just said, I'm out, I'm coming.
Yeah, I don't think she would have been down with it had I been like, oh yeah. She would have been like, why come here? You're just gonna get arrested. You know what I mean?
So you didn't tell anybody?
I don't believe so. I can't 100% say I didn't tell her. I'm sure I told the other little people I was hanging out with in Arizona, but
You got to know some people down there.
yeah.
Right. But there's not too many Puerto Ricans in Arizona either.
There's not too many Puerto Ricans anywhere but New York and like Miami and
Florida.
stuff. Everywhere else, you're just kind of considered Mexican, I guess.
So how'd things go in Arizona?
I mean,
You break up with Mandy.
I went straight back to Texas.
Why?
I mean,
How long were you in Arizona in total?
maybe less than a month.
I mean, what's your thought process to go back to the state where you wanted?
The thought process was kind of like the same thought process when I ran.
You're not thinking at all.
I don't have nowhere to go. I don't have nowhere to stay. I know my mom stays out at Canyon Lake. Well, she stayed out at Canyon Lake, and I can go deal with her family out there. And that's where I went. They're like super redneck and super. They have like a compound. And then when I went out there, it transferred over into. I started dealing with meth and selling meth and coke. And
how'd you even get back to Texas?
I drove. I had a car. I had a 1996 or a 98 Mercury Cougar.
You didn't steal that, did you?
No, my foster parents gave it to me.
Okay. Just making.
This is the first car I ever.
Just making sure you legitimately bought that one, right? So you get back to Texas.
Yep.
And now what happens?
I started dealing with Shirley, my mom's mother-in-law, and her husband, Tim. He's passed away now, too. Started getting mixed in with people who knew my mom from back when my mom kind of hung out with bikers and stuff. She was involved with like banditos and stuff, and she was like a Spanish girl from New York, but she didn't really.
Are you talking about the literal gang,
Yeah.
the banditos, right?
Yeah.
Right. So she was hanging out with them, so it was a safe place for you to be.
Yeah, and so when I got out there, everybody was just like
That's
open arms. Yeah.
Right. Welcome in.
Yeah.
Right, because you're the son of.
Yeah, Sonny.
So, right.
Everybody knew her as Sonny.
Okay, so you're the son of Sonny.
Yeah.
All right, so you're welcome into the crew, right? Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
It's typical how it goes.
right. That's the family, if you will. Right. So they took you in, but now you're 20. You're still 20.
Yeah, I'm 20.
You're still 20, and you know, looking back now, being 36, 16 years ago, you still know nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's.
in terms of.
I wish I wouldn't have done it.
Not that you haven't had, obviously, some. What's obviously a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
Not the most stable environment. A loving mother, obviously, but probably, and I mean this respectfully, not the best example for you.
No, yeah,
right?
I've never, like I said, she taught me good, so I've never been clouded about none of that. You know what I mean?
And then you're through in and out of let's just call it the prison system,
Yeah.
juvenile and otherwise, breaking off tethers. You're out in Arizona and you come back, right? So you're hanging out now you're hooking up with people who she was previously with.
Yeah.
You know, and they're doing, what are they into?
Mainly meth. Canyon Lake is like a meth hub. They drive around in helicopters 2 times a day doing temperature checks because people cooking.
Yeah, no, because you can tell the.
Yeah, even cold, hot or cold. If your house is too cold, because people do cold cooks, they'll stop by and you'll get a unit at your house. If your house is too hot, they do that. People were even doing mobile cooks, having RVs, burning people's eyes and stuff with the pneumonia coming out. It's crazy.
So a lot of cooking was going on out
Yeah,
there.
lots of it.
You watch Breaking Bad, I assume.
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, it's about the teacher. I want to watch it. I was thinking about watching it 2 days ago.
You can watch it. It's for hilarity.
I was locked up. You got to understand.
More than, well, I guess you were at the time.
Oh, all the time. I got out for like 2 years.
It's kind of I'm not going to promote doing anything that they do in that show. It is interesting nonetheless. Yeah, so are you selling meth or just doing it, or are you?
My friends were mainly. I talk about cooking like I cooked. I was involved around a lot of the cooking. I've seen a lot of the cooking going on, but I was mainly like selling in between guy, like taking it from this cook to this dealer, having enough and selling on my own. I was kind of all over the place with it.
And your tether's off, and you're still in Texas.
Yeah, I'm still on the run too.
Keeping that in mind the whole time.
Yeah.
Were you thinking, all right, I'm back in my home state, I'm wanted, I better not get pulled over?
Yeah.
All the
I
time.
did get pulled over one time, and I used somebody's name from TYC. It was crazy. They let me go.
They bought that?
Not really, but they couldn't verify it. We were out on the middle of a country road, and they were like, they couldn't verify it. They told me I could go. I jumped in the tow truck and got away. But I got caught not too long after that.
This is why you're still living up in
Canyon Lake, yeah.
So that's how you're making your cash.
Yeah.
So what's the next time you get in trouble?
I had I worked every now and then with this guy named Gerald. He was a construction carpentry kind of guy, and I was just kind of a grunt. Ended up having a falling out with him, and I was at a karaoke night one night, and he's real well known out in Canyon Lake for being a super drunk. He had one of them little blow things on his truck, and he pulls up at the bar, and we had a falling out, like I said. So when he sees me in there, he comes right up to me, and he's like, "Oh, David, and I miss you," and this and that, this and that. And he's like, "You need to see my new gun." And I was like, "Oh, well, let me see it." He's like, "It's out in the truck." We go out to the truck, and when he pulls out the gun, it's the same gun I have sitting at my house. It's not my gun, but it's the same gun, the same brand,
same model,
everything, the little glow tips and everything. So when I see it, I'm like, "Oh, I want that." So I could have two, in my head. That's the way I'm thinking about it.
Because you want two.
Yeah, I want mine and his.
Why? So you'd be like Jesse James or something?
So I can put my hat backwards or something.
So it's appealing to you. You're like, he's not. Is he just showing it to you to show you?
Yeah, he's trying to make up with me.
Right, like check out what I got. We've had a falling out. Look what I got. But
and he knows who I am and how I act.
All right, so fine. But you take him out there. He takes you out to a truck. You see the gun. Your first thought is not to make up with the guy, but then I'm going to go and be Jesse James and
I'm gonna go to his house and take it from.
Not on the spot. You're gonna now that you know he has it.
Yeah, I knew I was gonna get it somehow. I didn't know if he was gonna sell it to me or what, but I knew I wanted it.
Expensive? Was it expensive?
I don't know. I never really went to a store.
You just had an affinity for that particular gun, or you
I happened to one fell in my lap, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I had that at home, and then he just happened to get the same exact one, the same make, model, everything.
And you thought to yourself, no matter what I'm getting at, why not just go buy it?
I mean, you mean like legit go to the store and buy it? Or
yeah, like most people do, go to the store and buy one.
I don't think that would have worked out for me. I don't think they would have issued me one. I think I would have went to jail from the store.
I got you. All right. So that's right. You can't give out your name, so on and so forth. I'm having a brain fart. So why not have somebody get one for you? That would be an alternative. Or is
he's right there. It's convenient. I can have it's a Tuesday or something, and I could probably have it by Wednesday if I really want it.
All right. So what do you do? How do you get it? I mean, it's set in your head. Is it locked into your brain at this point? I'm getting that gun.
As soon as he shows it to me, I'm like, dude, you're crazy, man. You're on parole and all this for DWI. Where do you keep it, dude? How are you keeping this in your house? You're crazy.
Are you asking him that for?
As soon as he shows me, he's like, "Here, look." I'm like, "Oh man, that's crazy. That's nice. Let me see it." And I'm looking at it, this and that, and my brain is already.
You're already two steps ahead, trying to figure out where he keeps it in the house.
So I'm like, dude, you're on parole. Where do you keep this? You're not afraid they're gonna walk in and oh man, them bastards don't know where it is. I keep it in my office in the file cabinet.
Oh, there you go. So there's your answer. Right. And how long until you go grab that?
The next day.
He's not home.
He happened to be there, yes.
He was there.
Yeah, I walked through the front door, and he was sitting there on the couch.
And what would you say? What was his name? Jerry?
Gerald.
Gerald.
Yeah.
So would you say, hey, Gerald, what's up? I'm here to take your gun from you. I see you.
Yeah. And I walked straight to his office and grabbed it and walked straight out.
What did he say?
Like I said, when he told me about the gun, the reason he told me about it is because he thought it would be cool to me because he thought he knew the type of person I was.
No.
He didn't say much. He was like, "I'm gonna call the goddamn police," and I'm assuming that's what he did because they came for me.
They did.
Yeah.
But he had problems of his own.
Yeah.
So why call the police?
He didn't tell him it was about a gun. He told him I stole like money out of his office. I didn't. But he told him that.
Oh, fair enough. So everybody's going to have their story. We're taking your story today.
And he told him he saw me while they were like, wow, he just walked right through my front door. They gave me burglary habitation.
So, I mean, you didn't hesitate at all to walk through his door.
I didn't think he was there. I walked in knowing.
So you see him sitting on the couch, and now you know he's there.
Yeah.
And you said what? You're thinking to yourself, oh.
he kind of shocked me. I'm smiling like it's funny. It's not. He kind of shocked me. It kind of caught me like off guard.
Was he watching television?
Yeah. Him and his wife. or his girlfriend.
What does she have to say about you being there?
She doesn't like him. So that being the case, the reason me and him had a falling out was because of her. So when she seen me, she kind of just smirked. She didn't do nothing. I know that sounds crazy, but
so you take the gun. It seems like you didn't really care much about what they thought about it. You take the gun, but did you think he was going to call the police?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't for sure because it was a gun, but at the same time, when he said it, I knew they were.
So why not just chuck it back in the house and say, forget about it, I'm just goofing?
I'm already on the run.
Well,
that's the way my mind was.
I know, but you're being on the run without a tether and all that, there's consequence for that. Or you're just not thinking any of this?
Man, I wasn't even like, the bad thing is I've never been like a super, like, as much as it is vicious, the things I've done, I've never been like a super, you would never assume the stuff from me. You know what I mean? Back then, I know that makes it sound crazy because now you still wouldn't. But I've never been, I don't know how to explain it.
What do you mean that you're do you mean that you're unassuming?
Yeah.
Or that you're predictable? People knew you were going to do this stuff.
No, back then, or even, I mean, I don't do anything wrong nowadays. Back then, I always seemed like you would never, if you didn't know me personally, you would never have assumed. Like, they would tell you, he robbed somebody, and you, shut up, hell no.
Okay, so they wouldn't assume you were.
Yeah.
Like, so the cops come and get you?
They couldn't find me.
How did they even find you?
How did I end up getting caught? I stole a Mustang. And I ended up getting pulled over.
How many days did you steal the Mustang before that, or did you steal the Mustang?
My Cougar had ended up breaking down, so I wasn't mobile like that. And I was at a friend's house the next day after I took it was either the next day or the day after that. I was at somebody's house. I say friend, but it was like, I used that loosely. Somebody I knew. I asked their girlfriend or wife, however you want to term it, if I could go listen to music in their car. Went outside. I took off.
That was it.
Huh?
That was it.
Yeah.
So you got them out now. You're riding around the Mustang.
Yeah.
When they call you in tow.
And they got. I went to San Antonio, rode around for a little while, and ended up being on the east side. Got pulled over.
For what? Speeding.
Well, they got behind me and ran my plates. Yeah.
Stolen vehicle.
Yeah.
Do you have the gun in the car?
No.
No. That's separate.
Yeah.
Separated. But they're looking for you for the gun and the tether.
Well, they're looking for me for the tether and burglary.
So those two things are already piled up on you. Forget about the stolen car. You've already got two things piled up on you, right? They pull you over. State police?
No, it was just regular city, San Antonio PD.
Pull you over. They ran the plate. You in the car. You nervous?
Yeah.
You know what's going down?
Yeah, I knew.
Or you think, I might get out of this one too.
No.
You know?
I was in a stolen car. That I had somebody with me. They sent him home. He didn't even know the car was stolen. So
somebody was with you.
Yeah.
So they let him go.
Yeah, right from the scene.
Did you think about taking off?
I can't say that I did, because if I did,
are you going to put the pedal to the metal, or are you going to run? Are you going to do a cops thing?
If I would have thought about it, if I would
run for it,
if every time I ran, I'd know I was going to run before they pulled me over. And if I wasn't thinking about it, I wasn't going nowhere. It's kind of a weird way my brain worked. If I knew I was running, I would, as soon as I stopped, before I stopped. If I'd stopped, I was going to
So in this particular instance, you knew you weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so they arrested you on the stolen vehicle. Plus, you had warrants out for
the
burglary and the tether.
So I had grand theft auto. The charges all ended up being not grand theft. What? It's not called grand theft. It's in Texas. It was theft between $15,000 and $30,000 for the car.
Is that the equivalent of grand theft auto?
Yeah, here that would probably be what it's called. Right. But it was theft $15,000 to $30,000, burglary, habitation, which they treat worse. They do it because when it's somebody's home, if I broke into a business, they would have gave me burglary. But when you break into somebody's home, and especially they're there, it's considered more personal. it's considered like then just breaking into a building. That and my tether.
So you go to regular jail, get processed, so on and so
Yeah.
forth, and then what? Back into court, back into the system.
Yeah. They give me 5 years.
Total for all of that.
Yeah.
5
I got
years.
I got like 2 years state jail for or 2 years period, not state jail, but 2 years for the theft, 15 to 30,000, and then I got 5 years for the burglary habitation, and then I got revoked for breaking off my tether, but 5 years passed up my 24th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that was kind of just the 5 years took over everything.
So where did you go to prison?
TDC. I went to first unit I went to was Holiday Unit in Huntsville, Texas. Stayed there for probably 3 months. Got in trouble for writing notes with a female guard.
Mm-hmm.
Got sent to the Wallace Unit in Colorado City.
Mm.
No. Yeah, went to the Wallace Unit. Then from the Wallace Unit, went to the Sanders Estes Unit. Got in trouble for establishing a relationship with another officer.
Who was initiating all of these establishments with relationships?
I thought I was slick, man. I wasn't. I thought
you were an in-prison player.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
Were they going for it, or
Yeah, the one, she's Facebook friends with me now, and got tattoos and everything.
you thought you were slick, or you actually were?
I mean, I went into
you were able to convince female.
Well, you got to understand,
officers.
everybody in prison is on the female guards, and I figured out real quick that I wasn't as attractive as the most attractive of them, but I figured out that these guys were too attractive for them. You know what I mean? Who do you think's going to meet you really outside? This Denzel right here? Or me? You could see me going to work and coming home, couldn't you? You know what I mean? It sounds crazy. But the thing is, as I got older, I tell you these stories, and it really, if people wanted to be judgmental, they really, really could. But it comes around crazy. I'm a single father now. I've had my son since he's 7 years old now. I've had him since he was a year and a half. Literally, I'm complete opposite of what I used to be. You can probably even tell it in when I tell you the stories about the stuff in the past.
Well, listen, let's close it. Let's close it out this
Yeah.
way. All right. So let's say that, I mean, so you had a riddled history. I mean, many people do. It's right, but all that stopped at.
As soon as when I got out of prison, I did my whole time. I did 5 years.
And you got out in what year?
I was 26.
26. So 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
2008. Yeah.
2008, 2018. So now you have a family and a son. And
yeah. Everything I know is Dan. I wish I could press on it, but it's complete. Like, it's night and day. The way I used to be back then, I'm more of a sponge for knowledge now. Like I said, I have my son. That changed my world real big. His mom is in Texas. My fiance isn't his mother. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She just came into the picture 3 years ago for 4 years or so. It was just me and him. And
so you're just you're working, obviously.
Yeah, I do marble and granite.
You don't play I think we've talked before, you don't play the victim card, if you will, meaning you can't, that you can't get jobs without.
No, yeah. I seem to do well in Michigan. In Texas, not so much, because I committed the crimes in Texas.
But you have nothing outstanding. You're done with that life.
I haven't even gotten a speeding ticket since. Well, I've gotten a speeding ticket. I haven't even, other than that, like getting a speeding ticket. I deal with I see the law, the police. I worked on Van Dyke for a long time, so like it's night and day. It's literally night and day to what it used to be.
I ask a lot of people this. What would you say to the gentleman that you, in closing? It's good to hear that, that you've been out of trouble for a long time, that you kind of straightened out. I think a lot of that has to do with just growing up and, particularly given your history. it's a battle. You're against, the forces are against you almost. Because
it seems to work out now, though.
That you're seeing. Well, it probably makes you a stronger person at the end of the day, right? As opposed to having sheltered your entire life. What would you say to that? I'm not saying forget about the rob or you're the guy or whatever, but obviously the most intimate crime was probably obviously with the gentleman when you're 14. Is that something that you regret?
I regret that it had to happen to a person. I regret that I had to do that to somebody. But I don't even think my son would be here if I hadn't done that.
So agreeing that one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Right. And that life takes its paths. Right. Had you not done this, then you would be here, then you would be here, and your son wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Everybody could say that, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume that that's the case. Would you go back and would you do it differently?
I wouldn't have.
Would you say
if everything could turn out the same and I would end up with my son? No, I would absolutely. I would not do that. That if I could change that it was a person that something had to happen to, 100%. It bothers me that I've along the way. I feel very bad. That's one of the main things that changed me. I feel bad, even in prison when I was around people. I didn't get beat up people weaker than me and stuff like that because I started feeling really bad for people. You know what I mean? Even to this day, a bum. I'm like, how did he become homeless? I start feeling bad.
Well, I think that those are normal emotions to have about, and when you reflect as 10 years, 15, geez, at this point, 20 years later about things that you did, when you're 14 years old.
It sucks. I feel like it's a bad representation of me. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Really, really, really do.
Well, I mean, so, we've had the discussion that we have today, which are primarily about your criminal history. I don't think you've represented yourself in any ill fashion other than telling a story. I think and it's good to see that you've cleaned things up and that you're on the right path and probably a heck of a lot happier and not having that.
So what was the other option? You know what I mean?
Being on the run all the
if
time,
I had gotten in trouble again, it would have been over for me. I would have. It just didn't fit me no more. Right. I didn't, you know what I mean? It would have been over for me.
No. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh yeah.
And maybe there'll be a part 2 to this as well. Talk about a little bit more about that second half.
Yeah. I was a little nervous at first. I'm sorry. I heard it in my voice. And then as I got comfortable, no,
you're good. You're good to go. I appreciate you taking the time, Dave Rico. We'll get away from the Rico, right?
Yeah, call me Dave.
It's Dave Day. We've had a few Daves today. So thanks for taking the time to come over.
Yeah, absolutely.
We certainly appreciate it. All right. Thanks. And now we all go have a smoke.